16 books, one healer MC, and a world that completely reinvents itself halfway through. If you watched my first look on book 1 last week, you know I gave it a conditional recommend. Good bones, rough start, may need a little patience to get through book 1. But the question I keep getting is, does it pay off? Are all 16 books worth your time? That's what today's video is for. Hey darling Boyce here, welcome back to my channel. Here it is my goal to help you find your next book obsession. I am in my hoodie of the day, I am cozy, I am comfy, and I am ready to dive into today's video. Today we're doing a full series overview for Beneath the Dragoneye Moons by Selkie Myth. All 16 books. I'm going to walk you through what each era of the series does, where it stumbles, where it soars, and whether the whole thing sticks to the landing. Now, a quick note before we start, I am keeping spoilers light. There will be spoilers in this video, but I will mark them so that you can skip them if it is not your thing. I will tell you the tone and the feel of each arc, what changes, what to expect, but I'm not going to blow major plot moments for you as much as I can help. The goal is to help you decide whether to keep reading, not to replace the experience of reading it. If you haven't seen my book 1 first look, I will link it in the description and probably the title cards above. That video covers the premise, the content warnings, and whether book 1 is for you. Now, it is really important you watch that one first and then watch this one because this video picks up from the end of that video. Let's get into it. Now, let's talk about the series deep dive video framework, so to say. This is a new video format I'm trying out, so I really would love your feedback at the end, okay? My goal here is to look at longer series and to let you know if the payoff is there to read the whole thing. I point out the weak entries, the strong points, the things that you should look out for, and other issues or strengths you might want to know before starting. I really try to keep this high level to avoid spoilers, but I want to know how it lands for you, okay? Do you need more detail? Do you need less detail? Are there too many spoilers? Does it actually give you all the info you need? Please let me know, and I'm going to adapt this format of series overview accordingly to what feedback you give me. Before we go book by book, you need to understand the shape of this series because it does not follow a standard arc structure. Most long-tail series are one escalating story, but this one is more like 3 or 4 distinct phases that happen to share a protagonist. The world Elaine lives in at book 1 is almost unrecognizable by book 8. The stakes change, the cast changes. The tone shifts. Whether that's a feature or a bug is going to depend entirely on what you're reading the series for. I'm going to cover the series in 4 broad arcs and then give you a quick ratings rundown at the end so you can see where readers thought it peaked and where it dipped. Okay, we're going to start with Arc 1, the Ranger era, which covers books 1 through 3. Now, you already know book 1 from last week. Childhood, healer's oath, escape from an arranged marriage, joins the Rangers, rough start, strong finish. I go into so much detail over there that I'm not going to give you a rehashing of it here. Book 2, Adventures in the Argo, is where most readers feel the series clicks into gear. Elaine is now a working ranger out on the circuit, and the book does something genuinely clever. It uses her medical knowledge as an actual investigative tool. There's a plague arc where Elaine essentially has to figure out what's killing a town using biology she brought from Earth. The found family dynamic with her ranger team is also at its warmest here. If book 1 was the setup, book 2 is the delivery. Now, book 3, Ranger's Dawn, takes a big swing. Elaine goes through the brutal Ranger Academy, gets deployed to an active war front, and by the end of the book, she's come into her own and learned to handle the new responsibility. She has also proven she is the greatest healer in all of Remus. Her class upgrades into something genuinely powerful, and there's the confrontation with her former fiancé that a lot of readers found cathartic. This is widely considered the strongest arc of this series. All 3 books rate above a 4.4 on Goodreads, and if you make it through the childhood section of book 1 and the ranger team dynamic resonates for you, then you're in for a good experience with this arc. Now, let's talk about Arc 2. I didn't name this one because it's kind of a spoiler, so I'm just going to skip naming it because I'm really not sure what to call it. But this is books 4 through 6. Books 4 and 5 shift the scale significantly. Elaine is now powerful. There's a genuine war, a 2,500-year conflict against an insectoid enemy called the Fomorians, and the stakes have gone from will she survive society to will humanity survive? The action ramps up, the set pieces get bigger, and Elaine ends up in some genuinely creative situations, including a long stretch underground with dwarves. It has a very different texture than anything before it. By the end of book 5, Elaine comes into a powerful skill that will change everything. The story has answered several of the big questions it set up in books 1 through 3, so there is that satisfying resolution as well. But then there's book 6, Mortal Moments. I'm going to be straight with you. Book 6 is considered to be the weakest entry in the series. And don't get me wrong, pretty much every series has a weak entry. This is no shade towards Selkie. But many fans acknowledge that book 6 is that entry for Beneath the Dragoneye Moons. Based on what I found, Selkie Myth actually seems to be aware of it, so I don't think this is really like news to fans of the series. Elaine is stranded away from home, traveling with elves, and the book spends most of its time on a romantic subplot that readers consistently described as rushed and underdeveloped, which is almost a contradiction, but interesting commentary to say the least, right? The larger plot threads are mostly on pause. It's kind of a detour that the story needed to make to get to book 7, but because of that, it does earn a lower rating. My advice, if you enjoyed the series up to this point, but you hit book 6 and you get frustrated, push through. It's the bridge, not the destination, and book 7 is where the series earns back the investment of your time. Now we're going to talk about Arc 3, The Pivot. Book 7, Return to Remus, is a pivotal book in every sense. However, there are going to be big spoilers for book 7. I do not know how else to share this except to say that it is a big deal and the start of an entirely different arc that changes the trajectory of the entire series. So if you want a high-level overview, I'm going to be very, very vague here. Then, if you're okay with spoilers, I will get into more details. So let's start. The non-spoiler version. Around book 7, the series makes a bold structural choice that fundamentally changes everything. The world, the cast dynamics, the stakes. I'm not going to tell you what that is because discovering it is half the experience. What I will tell you is that books 8 through 16 feel like a different series in some ways. And whether that works for you will determine whether you go the distance and finish the series. I know, there's not much there, but I did say I wanted to keep that one spoiler free. Now, if you don't want any spoilers, you should probably stop here, and I'm going to chapter this out so you can skip to my finale, which I'm also going to try to keep spoiler free. There aren't huge spoilers in what I'm about to talk about, but it is enough that some surprises will be ruined for you, and I want you to just know what you're getting into before we continue. Okay, spoilers start here. You cannot be mad at me. I'm telling you there are spoilers. Elaine comes home. She deals with the fallout from her absence. She achieves something she's been working toward for the entire series, a meaningful change to the legal status of women in Remus, negotiated at the highest level. For readers who were frustrated with Elaine's passivity in book 1, this is the payoff. She doesn't just survive the patriarchy, she chips away at it from a position of power, and it costs her something real. And then at the very end of book 7, the series changes completely. Elaine and a small group of her closest people enter a fairy ring, fey portal, in pursuit of someone they love. Fey trickery and divine intervention mean they come out the other side over 20,000 years later. The world they return to is unrecognizable. Different races, different countries, different ways of using the system, different everything. This is the series' most divisive creative decision. Some readers love it. They see it as a bold, long-form storytelling choice, and they argue that a 20,000-year-old Earth woman with immortality should eventually outgrow the world she was born into. Other readers feel that it is a soft reset that abandons the emotional investment of the first 7 books. And you know what? Both responses are valid. What I can tell you is that the shift is intentional, it's earned within the story's logic, and it's where the series becomes something genuinely unusual. So let's go ahead and talk about Arc 4, The New World. Interestingly enough, this is books 8 through 16. Okay, I'm going to go on another soapbox. Buckle up. Okay, so a little insight into plot structure from a writer's perspective. An overall series is going to be broken up into arcs because it's really difficult to keep stakes and tension continuously rising if you just have one long story that feels kind of episodic. It can work, but it's really difficult to pull off an epic fantasy. So typically, An author will divide their series into smaller arcs, and every arc is the same number of books typically. So whether you have 3-book arcs, 4-book, 5-book, whatever it is, that's usually the same length of an arc across the entire series. 3-book arcs are the most common. Now, the way these arcs are set up is they have a central antagonist that drives the plot from books 1 to the end of that arc, but you have a different antagonist in each individual book that builds toward that primary antagonist for the arc, and then you handle that antagonist at the end of that final book in that arc. And then at the end, usually in an epilogue or something, you introduce new stakes, a new major antagonist that drives the next arc. That's sort of like plot structure 101 when it comes to arc structure. And it's really interesting that Beneath the Dragoneye Moons spits in the face of that convention. You have a 3-book arc, and then you have a 3-book arc, and then you kind of have a 2-book arc, and then like the ending arc. So they're all a little bit different, and it's just really an interesting setup that I haven't seen before. Okay, soapbox over. Let's keep going. Books 8 and 9, New Horizons and The Gladiator Gauntlet, take place in a magic school. Yeah, really. Elaine attends the School of Sorcery and Spellcraft in this far future world. She's learning new systems, new ways of using magic, new history. Iona, a Valkyrie she met in the New World, becomes a central character and Elaine's romantic partner. Oh, by the way, she's bi. If you came into the series for Roman-inspired world dynamics with the Rangers, then these books will feel completely different. It's like a completely different series. But if you are willing to meet the story where it is, the school arc has its own pleasures. New world building, a fun found family, and Elaine is finally operating from a position of genuine expertise rather than scrambling to survive. Books 10 and 11, Under Ashen Skies and Mandate of Heaven, take Elaine and Iona out of the school and into the wider world. They're hunting for Night, Elaine's old vampire mentor from the early books. Oh yeah, they're vampires too. They're hunting her mentor, which gives readers who love the original cast something to hold on to. Book 10 is actually one of the highest rated entries in the entire series. Books 12 and 13 are where the series hits its second rough patch. Book 12 centers on Ari, the phoenix Elaine has been raising since book 5. A bunch of phoenixes show up and essentially claim that Ari has to come with them. Elaine and Iona watch her go, they wait, and when the agreed timeline expires with no sign of Ari returning, Elaine goes to get her back. The book also includes Elaine deepening her wizardry skills at a monastery, some political world building about civilizations bumping into each other, and Elaine's engagement to Iona, which is reported as genuinely sweet. The problem reviewers have is that none of those threads generate much tension. The Ari situation, which is set up as the emotional core of the book, resolves much more neatly than readers expected, and several reviewers specifically called out the pacing. Months and years pass between passages. There's also a final chapter that multiple readers flagged as confusing, seemingly referencing events that hadn't happened or they were unclear in their intent. Fans of the series who are here for the cozy relationship content and the Elaine and Iona dynamic really enjoy this book, but readers who want narrative momentum will feel it stalling. Book 13, Moonfall, is the shorter version of the same problem, and readers felt it much more sharply because the book is noticeably shorter than every other entry in the series. It seems like the core complaint of this book was, again, the pacing. The structure is essentially a series of time-skipped vignettes spanning decades, with Elaine in a period of relative peace, building her life, her relationships, her home, that kind of thing. It seems to come across as more of a slice of life story than a momentum and action-driven epic. The title event, Elaine going to one of the moons, actually happens, but reviewers consistently report it's handled in a handful of chapters and doesn't land with the weight and build-up implied. The honest read on both books is that they're transition volumes. The author needed to move Elaine from where she was to where the story required her to be for the finale arc, and chose to do it through a quieter slice-of-life stretch rather than a crisis. This seems to have been a deliberate choice on the author's part. Book 14, Immortal War, is the payoff for everything books 12 and 13 were setting up. The Immortal War finally arrives, and the scale is apocalyptic. Immortals who have had centuries to build doomsday-level power all trigger their weapons simultaneously. Cities are destroyed. Civilization is nearly scoured from Palos. Elaine and her found family are thrown from crisis to crisis, doing everything in their power to save lives when they can't possibly save everyone. The first 60% of the book, the war itself, is described by readers as tense, devastating, and exactly what they've been waiting for. The pacing problem is that it ends fairly quickly and is resolved through what several reviewers categorize as convenient intervention, which, if true, undercuts some of the emotional weight. The aftermath section that follows, Elaine rebuilding a small settlement, trying to keep people alive in the wreckage, it is slower, but it has its own kind of quiet power. The most emotionally significant moment in the book is one that happens off the page, which is itself a point of contention. I won't tell you who dies, but it's a big deal, and the death does not get a scene. For readers who have been with the series since the beginning, that was kind of a gut punch, and many felt the character deserved better. Now, the rating climbs back to a 4.45, and 60% of the reviewers gave it 5 stars. So the majority found it really worthy despite any frustrations they have with it. The ending in particular apparently lands really well. Book 15, Rise from the Ashes, picks up in the aftermath of the Immortal War's devastation. 2 major power factions have emerged from the chaos. The Demon King, who is attempting to extend his reach across the recovering world, and the New Remus Empire, which is trying to rebuild the old civilization as a global empire. Elaine and her group refuse to submit to either of them, and the book is largely about undermining both while helping the world find its footing again. This is a more politically focused book than most of the series, and reader responses kind of split along the same lines they always have. People who love the found family slice of life texture found it engaging and emotionally satisfying, particularly some scenes involving a new young character named Sarah. Ooh, Sarah. People who want tighter narrative focus found it kind of episodic and overly busy with factions and characters who they said were hard to keep track of. The good news is that the book ends with a setup for a genuinely massive threat, one that sets up the finale. And that takes us to book 16, Of Gods and Dragons. I'll be honest with you, this one needs a caveat before I tell you what readers love about it. The first half of book 16 follows the same pattern as 12 and 13, vignettes, time skips spanning centuries, Elaine and Iona living their immortal life as the years roll by. I mean, if the slow stretches have been grinding on you, the opening of book 16 will too. That's just what I can find in the research. But then the back half kicks in. The threat is incoming, the gods mobilize, the dragons enter the fight. Iona's long-running divine quest, the one that's been building since she became a Valkyrie, comes to its conclusion in a showdown with an ancient dragon who has been a presence since the early books. The series title finally pays off when the moons themselves become central to the resolution. Multiple reviewers mentioned crying because of the emotional payoff and significance of some of the major moments in the story. One said they were sneaking reading it at work and had to explain why they were crying at their desk. The last 100 pages are described across multiple reviews as almost impossible to put down. Book 16 has a 70% 5-star rating and the highest 5-star proportion in the entire series. Despite any perceived flaws cited by reviewers, they almost all agree that the book delivers the emotional landing worthy of a 16-book series. Selkie Myth ends the series on his own terms with a complete story, and readers who made it there feel that it counts for a lot. Now, there's also a companion book called Valkyrie's Dawn. It collects the Iona interludes, chapters about Iona's timeline that were originally scattered through books 3 through 7. They were originally interlude chapters, and it's not required reading. It exists because those interludes were removed from the Royal Road version when the books went to KU, and fans who loved Iona's storyline asked for them to be collected into a separate tome. Read it if you love Iona. Skip it if you don't want to slow your momentum through the main series. So, the big question, is this series worth 16 books? Here's my honest take. If you loved the Ranger era, books 1 through 5, you have the backbone of a great lit RPG series, and you should absolutely keep going. If you hit book 6 and stall, take a breath and push through to book 7. The payoff for the original world's arc is there. If you make it through the world change in book 7 and the school arc in books 8 to 9 doesn't really appeal to you, that's a legitimate stopping point. You will have experienced the heart of what made the series special to you specifically. But if you stay all the way to book 16, by all accounts, you will get an ending that deeply pays off on everything Selkie Myth was building. From everything I can tell, dedicated readers absolutely loved the way it ended. and they had major book hangovers from it. Okay, wrapping up, that's everything. Without giving away massive spoilers, I think this is a good stopping point for this book. Now, remember, this is a new video format I'm trying out, so now I need your feedback, please. My goal with this video format is to look at longer series and to let you know if the payoff is there to read the whole thing. I point out the weak entries, the strong points, the things to look out for, and any issues or strengths you might want to know about before committing. Again, I tried to keep this more high level to avoid spoilers, but I want to know how this landed for you. Do you need more or less detail? Are there too many spoilers, or does it not give you the info you need? Please let me know and I will adapt accordingly. Links to the full series are in the description box below. If you've already read it, I want to know in the comments what you think. Did I nail this? What did I miss out on? What did I get wrong? What did I get right? Was book 6 as rough for you as it was for a lot of the people in the reviews? And does book 16 stick the landing? Tell me everything. Keep in mind, if you are going to read the comments, there might be spoilers if you're a newcomer. So just keep that in mind before you go down and start reading everything. So fair warning. And happy reading. I'll see you next time, darling. Bye.